Good evening. Welcome to Employment Law Today. I'm your host, Eric Sauver. I'm an employment law and business law attorney at the law office of Eric M. Sauver, and I host this show weekly, every Tuesday night from 5 p.m. to 6 p.m., with the goal of educating, motivating, and inspiring the small and mid-sized business owners out there that listen to the show, entrepreneurs, your brick and mortar establishments, any type of business out there, and even some employees listening as well. And in that spirit, I want to first welcome my guest tonight. We have guests each week, and the guest tonight is my colleague and friend, Stephen Petros. Stephen, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
You're welcome. Pleasure to have you. I'm going to give you a proper introduction in a moment, just talking about a little bit about your background and what you do. But before I do, I thought I would just talk a little bit about our topic tonight. And so the topic for tonight's show is perseverance in the pandemic and the importance of a healthy lifestyle. And the question comes up, what does tenacity and perseverance look like in the life of an entrepreneur during the pandemic? What types of adaptation or pivot in one's business model might be necessary during these trying times? It also brings up the question of what role does maintaining a healthy lifestyle play in having a healthy business? And in that vein, I would like to introduce tonight my spotlight guest, who is, as I mentioned, Stephen Petro of SPetro Lifestyle Solutions. And Stephen and I will discuss Stephen's journey as an entrepreneur, including his pivot and resilience during COVID-19. And also we'll discuss how vital good health practices are, such as those taught by Stephen through SPetro Lifestyle Solutions, and how that can help any business owner or entrepreneur out there. So that's our topic for tonight. And I want to read a little bit of an intro for you, Stephen, if I may.
Yes, please.
Great, wonderful. So as I mentioned, so Stephen Petro is the founder and principal of SPetro Lifestyle Solutions, a venture business with a focus on consulting services related to nutrition and maintenance of a physical health and healthy lifestyle, including healthy weight and sleep hygiene. Stephen's true passion since he was a teenager has been health and wellness, particularly in the areas of integrative health, diet, and nutrition. When he was a teenager, his experience and frustration with an acne issue empowered Stephen to search for alternative solutions. When he finally found nutritional sources for his acne, he became passionate about researching this field. And many years later, he turned his passion into a thriving business in which he has helped countless people achieve their wellness and fitness goals through the use of both a high-tech and a high-touch approach. Stephen utilizes a digital platform and a host of digital tools to provide clients with customized wellness solutions, but he also works with a team of individuals with specialties in exercise, integrative medicine, nutritional coaching, and other modalities to provide a unique consultative experience. And I should note that Stephen has worked at St. Luke's Hospital Obesity and Nutrition Research Center. He is a published academic author in ethical theory and is the former co-owner of Bowen Education, a standardized prep center in Flushing, New York. Stephen lives in Queens, New York. And I must say, Stephen, you've done a lot for man of your age. Quite impressive. So welcome to the show.
I appreciate that. Somewhat, right? There are a few things on there that I'm pretty proud of, but yeah, just keeping on going forward and keep building my expertise every single day. So and it's so much fun. So thank you, Eric, for having me on.
Oh, you're welcome. My pleasure. I'm glad you can make it tonight. Glad you're on the show. So, I would talk about you as a spotlight guest because we often, besides I speak about employment law issues and employee relations, I also talk about people who are surviving, even thriving and making it during the pandemic. But first I thought maybe if you can tell us a bit more about yourself, such as like, where did you begin your career? And maybe perhaps you can talk more about your current venture of SPetro Lifestyle Solutions.
Well, so it's kind of a funny story, and I think all of these entrepreneur journeys or people starting businesses in whatever aspect start with something very off the wall sometimes, and sometimes it's originally from necessity. So in my case, I think ever since I was in my undergrad, I had a certain idea of what I wanted to do. But even before that, my experience in high school, as you kind of brought up, as a teenager, I had wall-to-wall acne. That's what my mom always says. Oh, you had wall-to-wall acne, and and it really was true because of course, maybe you can't believe that now because I mean my skin has improved so much through that time period. But when I was in school, I went to so many different doctors and got a lot of different approaches, and I thought it's just things weren't working out for me. And I do want to preface this by saying I totally am in favor of integrative medicine. I'm not one of those people who is like anti-medicine, because some people in this field, unfortunately, tend to be that way.
Sure.
And so, but everything has its role, right, based on what your needs are as an individual. So, but anyway, that being said, what I was looking at and trying wasn't working for me, what I was being recommended. So I looked into, just as a teenager, I guess I'd always been a kind of a researcher, and I looked into just different things. And I was even as like a 15-year-old, trying to understand published studies, which of course I didn't. But, I was trying to just see what would work for me because I was so frustrated. And just so happened, I really got into diet and nutrition, and looked at, what the effect could be for an acne type situation, and also nutritional supplementation. So, and also exercise. In fact, it was around that time I entered cross country. If you know what that is, it's running, long distance running. I really got into that. Funny enough, where I had never done anything like it before. Lost 30 pounds doing that, and if you could believe it, 30 pounds when I was in high school. Even though I wasn't like amazingly overweight, but just the whole experience of clearing up my acne that way, and also losing 30 pounds, I just got super into nutrition, diet, fitness, integrative health. And at that time, even my mother and I were going to a doctor who used a lot of integrative methods, the traditional approaches with regards to pharmaceuticals and everything like that, of course. But then she did a lot with nutritional approaches as well, science-based. I always appreciated that about her. And it really turned me on to this whole field. So from that point, I started to really just pour myself into research on that. And of course, later, as I went to school, funny enough, I didn't study something in science in my undergrad. I studied the sciences later in my grad school, neurobiology and behavior. But earlier than that, I studied a different field, philosophy and history. Go figure. but there's a reason for that, which is another topic altogether. But basically, really got me passionate, and I got to a crossroads while I was actually in that grad program. I said, okay, I have student debt going on, and I have all this. I was in not a very good situation financially, and so I thought to myself, I can utilize. It was a long process for me to get to this point, but I said I could utilize a lot of that that passion that I had. And of course, I do have a good sense of what the actual science is and the research on a lot of these things. I have the analytical mind. So I said, you know what, why not utilize that in some way that I can really be passionate about, and I can also use to pay off my debt. So come a long way from like year 1 to year 7. But because when I started, you wouldn't have wanted to know me, Eric. Of course, I'm just saying that in all honesty. I can be a little vulnerable here.
Absolutely.
But I've always wanted to make an impact, and I've always wanted to be an educator, and I love that aspect of what I do. So I'll let you take it back if you want to ask me another question.
Sure.
I'm not used to talking this much. Seriously, I'm usually the one asking all the questions. So
right, in some of your own perhaps
yeah,
the podcast. Well, I definitely want to ask a little bit more about the particular service you provide, but before I do,
Yeah, sure.
if I may sort of like reflect upon what I'm hearing you say, some things that jumped out at me, including some parallels between your situation in high school and how you dealt with an adverse situation with adversity, and how business owners today are dealing with the adversity of the pandemic. We would not
For
always think
sure.
the two are related, hearing about a teenager's skin condition and a business owner's situation now with COVID. But what I hear a couple of themes, if I may, to reflect back. First, I heard what rang true, Stephen, for me is necessity is the mother of invention. So you had
Absolutely.
this, right, the situation, and you tried different things, different means, which you're not poo-pooing or putting down, they just didn't quite work. And so you found something that did, but it took a lot of hard work and research,
Right.
right? And then action, right? Knowledge and action awareness all combined. So that's really something. And like the way you like stuck with that. And then I hear you say that, it fueled your passion. And I heard also that you lost weight, you got into nutrition and exercise. So often when we do things that feed a positive result, it reinforces our reward circuitry around that situation. And
Absolutely.
and I
Absolutely.
wonder, right, which may be a good segue to my next question
Sure.
about your business. I'm wondering, when did you form SPetro Lifestyle Solutions, and what are the main services you offer, let's say, to your clients?
Well, it was really in year one. I mean, back 7 years ago. But it wasn't as fully formed as it is today, and it wasn't as comprehensive as it is today. I've learned a lot of lessons from, failing miserably, right? You have to do that. I'm just being very out there about that,
Yeah.
transparent about it, because um, you have to fail miserably many times to eventually get to where you want to be. Um, and so, yeah, today, basically, I'll just go into a little bit about my business. So what we do is we provide a suite of customized wellness solutions targeted, as you said, particularly toward fitness and weight management, but not limited to those areas. As you said, we utilize a high-tech, high-touch approach. And what I mean by that is we have a platform that people can access, and it's a web-based platform with tools, with resources, with education, but at the same time, always had access to a real person to work with, and somebody who's highly, highly educated in whatever the modality is in which they're working. So we do work with, that being said, they work with myself, and they work with, they have access to people who are very high ranking, such as my business partner Renee, who does Renee Raish. I'll give her a shout out here, who does actually works with IMX Pilates national franchise, doing the training for their franchisees. So she actually is very knowledgeable in that area of exercise. Work with different health professionals. So, for instance, if my knowledge in one area, or if my qualifications in one area, such as, for instance, if this person does have some severe condition, or if they have something that does require a medical doctor to speak with them, they do have access to basically be referred out to somebody, or I can refer them to somebody who has the medical license and who can speak directly to their practitioner, right? So yeah, so we offer that.
Yeah.
So basically, it's very 360. But yeah, in terms of, I just want to address what you are talking about in terms of the persistent, or the resilience. So
Well, actually, Stephen, so sorry to interrupt. I just
okay,
want,
go ahead.
before you do, I definitely
Yeah.
want to hear all about that. I want to give you the due time to do that, and we need to take a commercial break.
Oh, sure.
But when we come back, I promise I will get into that with you, because it's a
Sounds good.
fascinating topic. So didn't want to cut you off there. So folks, I'm Eric Sauver, host of Employment Law Today on talkradio.nyc. You're here with myself and my guest, Stephen Petro of SPetro Lifestyle Solutions. Stick around. We'll be right back.
You're listening to Talk Radio NYC at www.talkradio.nyc. talkradio.nyc, now broadcasting 24 hours a day.
Are you a conscious co-creator? Are you on a quest to raise your vibration and your consciousness? I'm Sam Leibowitz, your conscious consultant. And on my show, The Conscious Consultant Hour, Awakening Humanity, we will touch upon all these topics and more. Listen live at our new time on Thursdays at 12 noon Eastern Time. That's The Conscious Consultant Hour, Awakening Humanity, Thursdays, 12 noon on talkradio.nyc.
Are you interested in having a better relationship with yourself, others, and God? Greetings. I'm your host, Dr. George Andal, for the show A Journey Through into Awareness. On my show, we journey into the awareness that the mind of God is the true seat of our personal consciousness. We come together each Monday at 7 p.m., so tune in on Talk Radio NYC. Did you know that nearly 1 in 5 adults in the U.S. battles mental illness? Hi, my name is Albert Daba. I'm the host of the show Extra Innings. Extra Innings, I discuss the topics of wellness, mental health, and the experience of surviving multiple suicides with my family. Listen live every Monday at 6 p.m. Eastern to Extra Innings for discussions with sports figures, artists, mental health professionals, and many others. That's Monday at 6 p.m. Eastern on talkradio.nyc.
Hi, I'm Graham Dobbin. Join me every Thursday evening for the Mind Behind Leadership here on talkradio.nyc. We speak to people from business, sport, military, and politics, all around what makes a great leader. The personal experiences of what's worked and, if you more importantly, what hasn't worked. So that's 7 o'clock every Thursday evening. The Mind Behind Leadership here on talkradio.nyc. Listen to real stories of real leaders.
You're listening to Talk Radio NYC. Uplift, educate, empower.
Welcome back to Employment Law Today. I'm your host, Eric Sauver, employment law and business law attorney at the law office of Eric M. Sauver, and host this weekly show that meets 5 p.m. to 6 p.m. You can tune in live, or you can tune in live on Facebook, that is, video, or listen live on the Talk Radio NYC website. I'm here with my guest tonight, Stephen Petro of SPetro Lifestyle Solutions. And Stephen and I were just talking before the commercial break about resilience. After all, part of the theme here is resilience and perseverance during the pandemic. And Stephen shared some of his own resilience, and then we had to cut to a commercial break. So Stephen, why don't you finish what you started to say about your takeaways and your on resilience and such?
Sure. Well, it's funny. I recently just finished reading the book, and I'm an avid reader. About a book a week I go through. Although for some people that's not as avid, right? Some people, they do more, but I do about a book a week, and I just finished a great book, The Obstacle is the Way. And I don't know if you've read that but it's a fantastic book for every entrepreneur, especially during this time. And one of the things that I really took away that kind of characterizes the shift that we made during COVID, at the start of COVID, was, we had been doing a lot of in-person consultation, in-person appointment, and even like in-person classes. And so we kind of panicked at first, all right? And I panicked at first. I was like, oh my gosh, what do we do? But a lot of times we panic when something's very unfamiliar, right? Just because of the unfamiliarity of it. As you kind of alluded to, we are hardwired into our habits, right? And so it feels scary when something gets shifted. So I don't want to downplay, what I don't want to do is downplay a lot of the suffering that has gone on during this time. People have really, gone through tremendous difficulties and tremendous suffering, really. And I can't wait to see us back to normal. But that being said, I think what the pandemic situation also provided in terms of every obstacle, I believe there's an opportunity. And it was actually more of an opportunity to save more time and save more money, honestly, through the Zoom experience. And quite honestly, I mean, for us, it was actually advantageous in a way because we were already online in terms of doing a lot of our resources and tools are online. A lot of the videos and educational materials are online, but we didn't really think like, how do we put a class online and have people actually sit there and pay attention? We had all this skepticism about it, but it has really turned out to be so effective and so such a time saver. And so I really believe at the end of it, even after all of this is done and we can get back into our cafes and our restaurants and be safe about that, I think that Zoom is definitely here to stay. It's going to be for every business owner. I think it's going to be a big thing. So that being said, in terms of like pivoting, I mean, we were already online in a way, so it was, we were prepared in some way. But I think for those who are not online, I think here's really the bottom line, and it might be a hard truth to kind of come to terms with, is that yes, I do think the economy is shifting in that direction. And so anybody who isn't online, maybe, I mean, I speak to business owners just on a regular basis, and I know even some dog care business owner, right, in the South, and we were talking. I was like, have you ever thought of maybe just expanding your service? He's doing well, actually. Fortunately, sorry, that's my dog. I got it.
Well,
she loves this program, by the way.
So sure, and that was great cue and great timing, right? You're talking
exactly. She's too cute, so she's on here. She'll definitely mess up everybody's focus. But but basically, yeah. I told him, hey, you might include maybe some products that are in your store, maybe doing some e-commerce there, right? That might be an idea. Just throwing that out there. That might be an idea for people who are not doing it. If you're not familiar with it, it's scary, but you might consider going in that direction as well, to supplement your services. Other people who are solopreneurs, I do think this is a huge opportunity now to boost your social media marketing, right? Really work on online branding, learn some new skills that we might have been afraid of before, but I think that are very necessary. So
are these some skills that you've built, Stephen, during the pandemic that you've sort of beefed up on?
I was kind of doing some of it before, but it became more of a necessity. And I will tell you something, I never liked social media ever. But then something I realized is doing social media is way easier than like driving somewhere and using the gas and tolls and meetings, you know what I'm saying? So it's a lot more time leverage in that sense to be able to utilize that. And social media marketing can be fun. And it doesn't have to be like, marketing. It just can be whatever you're passionate about, whatever you like having a conversation about. You attract the same people that want to have that conversation. So I have actually learned to have a lot of fun with it, and while I'm sitting at home. So yeah.
That's really something there. I mean, I think, like when we asked you about some of the challenges during the pandemic, and that was, and then you also talked about ways in which you pivoted, some takeaways there that besides, by the way, those, I think, really good tips about increasing one's social media presence, upping one's online presence. I've had some guests on the show in the last few months who speak to employment law, but also guests who speak to video marketing or upgrading one's digital website or having a better polished virtual image. So all great topics that you're bringing up.
Sure.
And what I also heard, was just your, when the pandemic hit, that you talked earlier about how, with uncertainty comes some fear, and the very real, honest reaction that you described, a bit of sort of pandemic-induced panic or fear
Right.
about,
For
right,
sure.
what do we do? So I think that's really important for people to know that just because you're a business owner out there, whether you're a restaurant or an architect or an entrepreneur, e-commerce, person, um, just because you have some fear about the situation does not mean that either A, there's anything wrong with that. There's truly not. And
Right.
B, right, it doesn't mean that the fear has to paralyze you. So Stephen, I hear you talking about just moving through that fear and taking action. And that's what I think is to me, that's resilience, right there.
Well, one thing that is a huge, I focused, I would say, also much more in a very definitive way on my habits. And because a special challenge I found when working at home, and I think this is universal, working at home or doing what you're doing at home, for me, it's just suddenly there was no structure. Right. Okay. No structure in terms of like where I'm gonna be at a certain time, and I usually had that planned out for myself with location and time, and that was missing. And so I really had to be even more attuned to what is my schedule. So making it so that I have a very strict morning routine. I have to, so to speak, clock in at a certain time and make sure I'm at my laptop at a certain time and I'm doing specific tasks. So, and prioritizing is so important. Yeah.
No, very, very true. I think a lot of us have. I know personally, speaking from my experience as well, that when the pandemic hit, my office is in New York City and I live in New Jersey, so there was always a rhythm to the morning and evening commute that kind of
Right.
like told me, right, and it cued me into, okay, now I'm starting work, now I'm ending work. If I was busy, I could do some work on the train because I had a long train ride home to New Jersey, and so there was always that. And there were also, like you mentioned, right, the rhythm of the day. Let's say when it's lunchtime, and when you have a networking group in the morning for breakfast, that it gets you out the door. And with the pandemic and with people working from home, I actually chose to rent a small office not far from my home just to sort of do some work, even though
Sure.
I'm not seeing clients here. Everything's all virtual,
Yeah.
nor am I advertising it per se, but it's just a small little place. And it's literally a few blocks from home. And I had people ask me, well, why would you do that if you don't need to? And I said, well, I need it for the break, the sanity, and also the fact that my wife works from home now, well, except for one day a week, and for a long time our son was home with us before daycare was reopened again. So it could be a real balancing act, and I think that's
and when you're home, something always pops up, right? Isn't that the case? There's always something you can work on, or something pops up, some project, whatever, and it's I feel you.
I want to hear more about your experience after this next commercial break.
Sure.
So we have to take another commercial break in a moment or so. Just want to, again, for those that join us late, I'm here with Stephen Petros. Stephen is an entrepreneur and educator, and he's the founder of SPetro Lifestyle Solutions. And we're talking about Stephen's journey and business, his experience, and also his pivot and his resilience during the pandemic. When we come back from the break, I want to talk a little bit about the topic of staying healthy as a business owner. We talk a lot about financial health and operational health, but the actual owner has to be healthy as well. So we're going to take a break. Again, I'm Eric Sauver, host of Employment Law Today. Stick around. We'll be right back.
You're listening to Talk Radio NYC. Uplift, educate, empower.
Hey everybody, it's Tommy D, the nonprofit sector connector, coming at you from my attic. Each week here on talkradio.nyc, I host the program Philanthropy in Focus. Nonprofits impact us each and every day, and it's my focus to help them amplify their message and tell their story. Listen each week at 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time until 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, right here on talkradio.nyc.
Are you a business owner? Do you want to be a business owner? Do you work with business owners? Hi, I'm Stephen Fry, your small and medium-sized business or SMB guy, and I'm the host of the new show, Always Friday. While I love to have fun on my show, we take those Friday feelings of freedom and clarity to discuss popular topics on the minds of SMBs today. Please join me and my various special guests on Friday at 11 a.m. on talkradio.nyc.
Do you run or are ready to open your own business? Hi, I'm Jeremiah Fox. I've been operating and opening small business for the last 25 years, and I'm the host of the new show, The Entrepreneurial Web. Tune in every Friday at noon Eastern Time for insights and stories on the nuances of running small business right here on Fridays at noon, talkradio.nyc.
Hi, I am Joseph Franklin McElroy, host of the new podcast, Wise Content Creates Wealth. It airs on talkradio.nyc every Friday afternoon from 1 p.m. to 2. They say content is king. Well, wise content rules the world. Every episode features tools and tips for content marketing and business people telling the wise content stories of that success. Tune in every Friday from 1 p.m. to 2 on talkradio.nyc.
You're listening to Talk Radio NYC at www.talkradio.nyc, now broadcasting 24 hours a day.
Welcome back to Employment Law Today. I'm your host of the show, Eric Sauver. I'm an employment law and business law attorney at my firm, the Law Office of Eric M. Sauver. Here joining me tonight for the last 32 minutes roughly is, again, my colleague and friend, Stephen Petro. Stephen is an entrepreneur. He's also an educator, and he is the founder of SPetro Lifestyle Solutions. And just for a quick recap for those joining us late, we're talking about sort of two topics that dovetail into each other. One is the perseverance during the pandemic. What is the resilience involved? What does it take to move forward? What has helped Stephen and his business to adapt, diversify, to change, and to grow during this last 11 months, practically a year now, of the COVID-19 pandemic. But the other topic we're talking about is what Stephen, in fact, does for a living, which is his basically his consultative services of helping people with their nutrition, wellness, and health goals, including diet, nutrition, and sleep hygiene, if I'm not mistaken. And you talked about that, Stephen, before. You mentioned how you both serve as a referral hub of sorts with people coming through, and you can connect them to other experts in different fields, but you also provide consultative guidance. And so what I wanted to ask you is, what do you think about, say, sort of the question coming in a moment?
Sure.
I hear a lot of people talk about COVID in the last year, and it seems to me that there's been like an unspoken rule or unspoken something happening in our society where people have let themselves indulge in unhealthy habits. And I think, so for example, I've heard and read that during COVID-19, alcohol sales were up something like 44% in the US, and more people took up smoking or went back to smoking cigarettes. Now, a lot of people, I think, use the rationale that, well, I'm focused on my business. I've got to work extra hard. I'm working long hours. I'm very stressed, so I need this relief. And
Sure.
it kind of brings up the question of, to those people out there listening tonight who may be in that category, without offering a shaming message, but why do you think it's important for the business owner to focus on their own personal health, not just financial health or well-being?
Well, I think the last part of it, just dovetailing on the last part of what you said, without a shaming approach, I think that's actually the most important thing here, is a very compassionate approach. I think, I'll just share a story. I was actually talking to a coach, a fitness coach. It was a long time ago. It was years ago, and the context doesn't really matter, and whatever. But we were having a conversation, and it was something where it was a point where I was like not super consistent with exercise, as I am now. I am like crazy about exercise now, but before, I was saying, I'm doing like one time a week and a couple of minutes and doing this, and he just automatically started shaming me. He's like, well, that's not enough. And I'm like, well, okay. So one thing, you know about human behavior, let's just talk about this from one standpoint, is I always believe you have to come from a scientific approach about this. And then, if you take that approach, you do end up having a little bit more compassion. What really causes people to fall off the bandwagon, as you will? Well, for sure, what happened is, as we were talking about last time, everybody's habits changed, right? So everybody started to have one habit, and maybe they weren't exercising before, but maybe they weren't eating healthy before, or maybe they were, or whatever, but their habits changed, everything got thrown off. And what happened with that situation is what's called a keystone habit got shifted. There's something in the behavioral literature called keystone habits. If you really want to like a lay version of this and to get into this, two books I really highly recommend, Atomic Habits, and then also The Power of Habit, really will help you to understand why you're having certain habits, why you're struggling, right? So I think it's important to acknowledge it up front. And just get to the source of why somebody is struggling, and get to also the understanding. Well, eventually, you do want to kind of communicate to the individual, and have them have an understanding at some point of just how important it is, and without going into just tons and tons of stuff here, let me give you a few examples. So if somebody has a what's called a high glycemic impact diet, what does that mean from a standpoint? Let's say, so when you eat a meal, you have whatever that is carbohydrates, proteins, fats, and of course vitamins and minerals. And what the end result is on your blood sugar is either it's going to be stable, it's going to rise, right, to some extent, but is it going to cause a huge spike and an instability and a drop, or is it going to cause a smaller rise and a kind of a lower drop, right? That's basically, if you're having that effect, you're going to have a very stable mood, right? When you have a stable mood, you just do have more productivity. It is so clear in the research. So, and there are marked differences in terms of people's performance on tasks, their efficiency on tasks. So I think people who are using that reason, it again need to take a compassionate approach, but really need to get to the root of what's going on, like how, and what are some easy ways. Don't make it so hard. Not everybody has to, go and fix the problem by working out 7 days a week, and do a strict detox, and do, and only eat, eat no carbs and things like that. Right. So there are little ways to get people back on the right track. These little things, honestly, slight changes can make a huge impact in health outcomes. And that's just abundantly clear in just the literature that's out there. So that's basically, I could provide many, many more examples of how the impact on health and nutrition and exercise, but there are two videos that I really highly recommend people watch. for just the understanding of brain health and productivity. There are 2 TED Talks that kind of break it down really well. Dr. Wendy Suzuki has a really great TED Talk on this. She's a neuroscientist who specializes in exercise and brain physiology. And then Angela Ridgel also has, Ridgel, has a fantastic TED Talk on this as well. So there's plenty in terms of the science of this to back that up. But yeah, compassion is key. Compassion is really key, and education. So
that's, I mean, if I may, just I to kind of explore what you're saying there. What's interesting to me is that you talked about, I think you hit the nail on the head. First, I think in order for people to take any suggestion seriously, for example, like to say, hey, we need to really focus on our health. It's important to know why, right? There's the why. Why should I do this? Why should I get up early and exercise? Why should I, right? Especially, let's say if someone used to be a swimmer or used to go to yoga or the gym or Zumba, now they can't, and they have to find ways that it becomes more difficult, or people have children at home or homeschooling with Zoom, and so it's like you have to get up super early. So, but you answered the why by talking a bit about the science behind. I think what I heard from you is a little bit of the concept of the proverbial sugar crash, right? Like if we're eating a high sugar diet, we get a burst of energy and maybe a little bit of our stress gets cut off, and then we get tired out and we get a little exhausted and therefore irritated, maybe distracted. And if we're eating healthy foods and hydrating properly, so that's, I think, one important takeaway, right?
Well, I do want to address another thing, because there are some people who are listening to this and who will have one of 2 problems, or both.
Yeah.
One is a huge problem is that many people don't understand. I mean, you say sugar crash, okay, people kind of get that, but a lot of people don't even understand what are the foods. There are many foods or many kinds of processed foods that can cause that effect, or even just combinations of foods which might not be ideal. So I want to address something else, which is somebody might be listening to this and saying, hey, like we're in the middle of a pandemic. I'm having food issues, right? Having trouble affording things. I mean, this is a reality for many people. Sure. So I don't have ideal food choices. Well, here's the great thing about this too, and we provide lots of education too that's free. So by the way, anybody who wants to sit in on one of our classes or get some of our resources, a lot of stuff that we provide is free. So feel free. But the one way to address this is that just change some of the combinations of your food. It might be I'll give you an example. If you can afford a hot dog, right? And maybe the rest is like processed stuff. Well, you might want to do a greater portion of that hot dog. It's not ideal, right? But it's a protein, and maybe add some sort of healthier fat alongside it is going to slow that sugar rise and the impact on the blood sugar, and then the impact on weight and fat storage. So there are lots of things we can do even in non-ideal situations.
Right. We can tweak things. We can, like you said, we can also take into account those logistical issues of whether it's economics or time. And then what I hear you saying, I'm reminding our listeners tonight that Stephen's business, SPetro Lifestyle Solutions, addresses nutrition and wellness and health. And so if, say, somebody listening tonight is a business owner out there that's having some, perhaps maybe you're reflecting and saying, gee, I've gained a little bit of weight. I've gained the COVID-15 during the COVID-19. I've been locked up, like binge watching Netflix, that people can no, it's the place to go. And I think I really wanted to say that because I think people often hear, okay, they recognize rather they're not eating in a healthy way, or they're not maybe exercising, or they're not keeping good sleep habits now with the pandemic. People might recognize the problem, Stephen, but they might not know where to go or how to fix it. Right. So what I hear from you is let's say solid, concrete examples of, okay, this is, let's say, what your issue is. And we being SPetro Lifestyle Solutions, you and your company have educational seminars and classes and ways that you can help people. And I want to get to those in a moment, but before I do, You might guess what I'm about to say. We have to
Break.
Commercial break, exactly.
That's right.
Folks, and for everyone out there, you're listening tonight, you're listening to Employment Law Today. I'm the host of the show. I'm Eric Sauver. I'm an employment law, business law attorney helping small and mid-sized companies. My guest, Stephen Petro, is an entrepreneur, educator, and into nutrition and wellness with SPetro Lifestyle Solutions. So, folks, just stick around. We'll be right back.
You're listening to Talk Radio NYC. Uplift, educate, empower.
Are you a small business trying to navigate the COVID-19 related employment laws? Hello, I'm Eric Sauber, employment law, business law attorney, and host of the new radio show, Employment Law Today. On my show, we'll have guests to discuss the common employment law challenges business owners are facing during these trying times. Tune in on Tuesday evenings from 5 p.m. to 6 p.m. Eastern Time on talkradio.nyc.
I am Joseph Franklin McElroy, host of the new podcast, Gateway to the Smokies. It airs on talkradio.nyc every Tuesday night from 6 p.m. to 7. Every episode is dedicated to memorable experiences in the Great Smoky Mountains National Park and surrounding areas. This show features experts and locals who will expound upon the richness of culture, history, and adventure that awaits you in the Smokies. Tune in every Tuesday from 6 p.m. to 7 on talkradio.nyc.
Do you love or are you intrigued about New York City and its neighborhoods? I'm Jeff Goodman, host of Rediscovering New York, a weekly show that showcases New York's history and its extraordinary neighborhoods. Every Tuesday live at 7 p.m., we focus on a particular neighborhood and explore its history, its vibe, its feel, and its energy. Tune in live every Tuesday at 7 p.m. on talkradio.nyc.
You're listening to Talk Radio NYC at www.talkradio.nyc. Now broadcasting 24 hours a day.
Welcome back to Employment Law Today. I'm your host, Eric Sauver. I'm here tonight with my guest, Stephen Petro. Stephen, again, an entrepreneur, businessman, and educator. And Stephen's company, SPetro Lifestyle Solutions, helps people to get in touch with their nutritional and wellness goals and aspirations. So, Stephen, I just want to go back to what you were saying before the show. I want to hear more about some of the examples of perhaps some nutritional and wellness guidance that you provide to your clients. Can you take us through some more, perhaps examples, nutritional? It's really good stuff.
Sure. Yeah. So I think one of the biggest issues now, especially is sleep habits. So, for sure, people, especially in NYC, right? We're always walking everywhere. I think so many of us are walking, walking constantly. And, we do adapt to that rhythm, and our circadian rhythm does respond to, even just that kind of activity level, going places. There is a rhythm to that hormonally. And so even just stopping that kind of activity very abruptly does affect. I remember for me, when this whole thing started way back in March, I was finding myself staying up until just not voluntarily until 1 p.m. and I'm like, or 1 a.m. and I'm like, what's going on? Why am I having such trouble getting to sleep? So one of the things you really want to look at in those cases is things like light. Light is very light actually has a huge impact. I remember when we were doing back in like my neuroendocrinology textbook, we did a whole class basically on light and sleep, and it was that important because even just the smallest amount of light causes hormonal issues in the brain and actually inflammation. I don't want to scare people, but you can combat these things. But, just making sure, obviously, all the lights are off. You want to sleep in complete darkness as much as possible. There are times when even supplementation may be appropriate, some melatonin support, and some herbs are actually very helpful, certain herbs. But also, when you are doing certain things, again, you want to just schedule your time, because your body does, unbeknownst to you, respond to your routine. So hormonal release and so forth. So that's a very important one.
Yeah.
But again, we coming back to linking to obesity or linking to weight gain, it directly, there's been a lot of research in recent years showing how directly sleep quality affects weight gain.
Yes.
So if you're not sleeping well, you are actually you're restricting your metabolism, and you are actually increasing, get this, you're increasing the hunger hormone leptin, right, whenever you don't sleep well. So you may find yourself actually hungrier because of this. So yeah, a lot of things. So one of the things I do want to kind of address is a very pervasive thing. And I think the fitness industry, and a model I think we're moving more away from, which is the calories in, calories out, that simple model. It is true, you will lose weight if you restrict calories and so forth. That's true. I'm for sure not arguing with that. That's physics. That's first law of thermodynamics right there. But not disputing there. But we have to back up a second and ask ourselves, is weight loss the goal, or is a healthy body composition the goal?
Very true.
So one of the things, and what do I mean by healthy body composition? Healthy ratio of fat to muscle, okay? Muscle dictates metabolism. You have more what's called mitochondria in muscle tissue than fat, so they burn more energy. So the thing is, we want to not just necessarily look at how thin you are or how overweight or whatever. Very, very important, and what we really train on and help people with is body composition, which I think is more the root of what's going on.
Right.
So
that's interesting, and that I think a couple of things jump out at me there. One, as we're talking about this, right? I'm thinking about how to put it in the context of our show, which is the show is employment law today, but it also has to do with how employers and business owners, let's say business owners out there, can be at their best, because it's hard to run a business in any, right? Even as we both know, and myself as a lawyer for 22 years, but I've been at my practice since April of 2001, and you with 7 years in your company, we know that even in the best of times, even not with a pandemic, it can be challenging to run a business. And I think that, right. And so I think what I've often observed, because I work with a lot of clients or entrepreneurs, not in the way that you do, Stephen, of course, I work with them with their contracts, their employee handbooks, their employment issues. But I've noticed that sometimes I've noticed people who almost wear the lack of sleep as, like, say, a sort of either a badge of honor or a sign that they're a true go-getter, that they're going to be, it's almost like a New York cliche of sorts, or maybe it's a metro area, NYC metro area cliche that you burn the candle at both ends. But what I hear you saying here is that even in the best of times, having proper sleep and nutrition, it helps you as a person. And then it's by extension, if you're in business for yourself, it helps your business because you can concentrate better, you can stay healthier, you're not as you're more energized, your mood is stable, all of which, I think we lose sight of because we're used to talking about financial health and operations.
Well, let's put it this way. It's I'll put it bluntly, it's directly tied to financial health. So there's, there are different studies out there, but, I've seen as much as a 120% increase in productivity by implementing very simple healthy habits. And what does that turn into? That's money, right? So basically, if you want to make money, your healthy habits, they really do translate into more money in your pocket. So the only thing I could do, we can't do like a long drawn out explanation of how do you get to those root problems of,
Right.
you know, how do you get more sleep on a busy schedule? How do you eat healthier on a busy schedule? These are even much longer conversations that they're individual conversations. But what I can say that are great resources that I do want to, that people can kind of implement right away is, you know, get those books that I talked about. Get the there are three that I recommend. One is the Atomic Habits, or the Power of Habits, the Power of Habit. Those you really can get to the root cause, and it teaches very simple practical steps about how to change some things for yourself to get better results. The third book, and it's, I think, great for any business owner entrepreneur who has employees or whatever. Contagious Culture by Anise Kavanaugh, a lot about self-care in there. So anyway, I will hand it back to you, Eric.
Yeah, thank you. No, in fact, it's funny you mentioned if we had more time, we can talk. It's an in-depth conversation. We have about 2 minutes to end. So what I'm going to do is, before I give my sort of 30-second segue out, I want to hear, just if you want to take a moment, could you share with us perhaps, say, your contact information? How would people find you, your website or email or?
Sure. So I really prefer people contact me directly. You can connect with me on Facebook or Instagram at Stephen Petro 411. It's Stephen with a PH, STEPHEN PETRO 411. So at Stephen Petro 411, and then on LinkedIn, Stephen Petro, STEPHEN, and then Petro. So feel free to. We do have events coming up on March 3rd, Kicking the Sugar Habit. Great education if you want to do that. So contact me for more information as well.
Wonderful. Stephen, thank you so much for sharing that. Folks, I'm Eric Sauver, the host of Employment Law Today. I have this show on talkradio.nyc every Tuesday, 5 p.m. to 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. If you like what you've heard, you can like us on Facebook. You can also tune in Tuesday to 5 o'clock at facebook.com or on the radio show itself at www.talkradio.nyc. I want to thank you so much, Stephen, for joining us this evening. It's been a pleasure.
Really had an amazing time. Thank you.
Well, you're welcome. It's a pleasure having you on the show. Hope those out there listening got some good takeaways. Tune in for the upcoming show at 6 p.m. to our station here at Talk Radio NYC. And everyone have a great night, and I'll be back next Tuesday. So thank you and take care.